You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Davenport Auto Park, the ride of your life. And also sponsored by Flores Glass, serving the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Welcome to another episode of Wayback Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcock. So glad you could be with us tonight. And Happy New Year, by the way. Today is the first show of the new year, 2023. I'm glad to be sharing it with you there at home. Tonight's show is going to be kind of a revisiting, if you will. As I do each week in preparation for the show, I spend an awful lot of time on the newspapers.com website. If you watch the show regularly, you hear me mention it all the time because it literally is probably my number one go-to tool for getting ready for the show each week. And oftentimes when I go to this website, I've got a predetermined topic in mind that I'm going to be looking for. And so I'll pick a building or I'll pick a person or location or whatever, and then start doing searches trying to find what I can find related to that particular topic. This week, however, I didn't do that. I was actually just browsing around on newspapers.com website, and I stumbled across a site that surprised me, number one, because if you remember, several months ago we did a show about grist mills in and around the Rocky Mount area. And we talked about the various grist mills, the Compass Creek grist mill, Davenport grist mill, the one out by Nash General Hospital on Stony Creek out there, Bellamy's mill, grist mill. And if you remember, I'd found a couple of pictures of various grist mills, but one mill in particular that I was really anxious to find a picture of and never did back then was the Davenport grist mill. For those that are not familiar with that mill, that's the one that's a little bit upstream from the Layman's Ferry Bridge on Tar River off Halifax Road out there. A friend of mine, Steve Luper, has recently bought the property where the mill was, and I've not had a chance to go out there yet, but Steve has posted some pictures on Facebook and has gone in and landscaped the area there where the dam is and so forth. I'm really anxious to get out there and take a look at the place in person. Steve just got a natural talent for dressing up Mother Nature and making it hospitable, so to speak. And from what I can tell from looking at the pictures, he's done just that. He's made a really nice little gathering place out there on the river at the site of the old Davenport grist mill. But getting back to what I stumbled across a picture of the Davenport grist mill. And I was really surprised in one sense, as I said, because I did not expect to see a picture of it. But it kind of put me back hot on the topic of trying to find pictures of the Davenport grist mill. And so I did a few more searches, found a couple more pictures, and during the search for pictures of Davenport grist mill, I stumbled across a little known fact about the Rocky Mount Reservoir Dam. As it turns out, one of the original locations that was selected to put the Rocky Mount Reservoir Dam was there at the location of the Davenport grist mill. Interestingly enough, the plan was to utilize the existing area right there where the Davenport grist mill was and their dam, and I guess just move all that out of the way and build a new dam right there. When they went to doing the surveying and the ground inspection and so forth, from what I gathered during the research I was doing, they deemed that particular area not suitable for the dam. In fact, the phrase was used that the ground was too soft. So I wouldn't imagine that. I would have never thought that would have been a consideration. I was just certain there'd be pilings driven deep into the ground and cement filled and so forth. So I couldn't imagine there being a concern about how soft the ground was, but apparently it was a consideration anyway. And so the decision was obviously made to move the location further upstream from the Davenport grist mill where it is today. But in addition to finding that little tidbit of information about that Davenport grist mill being the original site selected for the dam, I found some other neat bits of information about the dam and about the process that the city went through. It was literally a dozen-year-long process, more than a dozen years, in fact. The first inquiries into what was going to be involved in putting a dam on the Tar River went all the way back to 1954. And so several years went past before there was ever a shovelful of dirt turned over out there. And we'll get all to that in a minute. But before we get into the pictures, I wanted to share something with you. Most of the time when I'm doing research, particularly for an area or a building or a particular topic around Rocky Mount, I will narrow my focus on the newspapers.com website, specifically to Rocky Mount. But occasionally, just to see if anything pops up on a broader search, I'll search, for example, in the News Observer. Because one of the neat things about this website is that you can pick a geographic region, and you can pick a local newspaper, or you can pick a particular city. So I actually did a search in the News and Observer and found this little short article that really kind of surprised me. And it's real short, I'll read it to you, but this appeared in the News and Observer January the 17th of 1922. So check this out. It says, following action taken at a recent aldermanic meeting when possible power sites upon the Tar River were discussed in the Water and Light Committee in conjunction with Superintendent of Public Works, Lyon was instructed to delve into the possibility. William C. Olson, engineering expert in company with Mr. Lyon and Officer Henry Hedgepeth, yesterday made an investigation of water power possibilities at 3 sites on the Tar River: Davenport Mill, Strickland's Mill, and Thompson's Mill. Following the detailed inspection, Mr. Olson returned with the data which he collected to his office in Kinston, where he will prepare a report to be presented to the Board of Aldermen. It is probable that the report will not be completed in time for presentation at next week's meeting, but will be delayed until the first February session of the board. It is understood that the report will be of preliminary nature and will advise for or against a detailed survey of the power possibilities. So, I've often wondered why they did not implement some kind of hydroelectric capabilities into the dam out there when they built the dam on the Tar River at the reservoir. But as it turns out, back in 1922, there at the same location at Davenport Grist Mill, there was actually a survey, if you will, conducted to see about the feasibility of putting a hydroelectric dam there at Davenport Mill. The other 2 locations I'm not familiar with, Strickland's Mill and Thompson's Mill. Obviously, they're somewhere on Tar River also. But I just thought it was neat that in 1922, there was a survey or some kind of effort put into looking at the feasibility of putting a hydroelectric water dam on the Tar River for purposes of generating electricity. In 1922, I would not have thought that would have been on anybody's mind around here, but apparently it was. Okay, so I mentioned that I stumbled across this little tidbit of information about the original location, or one of the original locations for the Rocky Mount Reservoir Dam was there at Davenport Mill, and they obviously chose not to use that location. But while I was digging around for more information about Davenport Mill and the Reservoir Dam and so forth, I stumbled across this ad that appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram in February of 1951. So Lee, if you would, put up item number 1 for us. This is just a little ad, it's not an article, it's just an ad that appeared. And you see there it says, announcing, we have leased and are operating the Davenport Mill, formerly operated by Paul Whitley, located 1 mile north of Joiner's Crossroad off Highway 95. We pay top market prices for corn and also carry a full line of feeds, Compass Creek Mills. So if you remember, Compass Creek Mills is the old grist mill that operated over there on Gold Rock Road, just a little ways down from the intersection of Benvenue Road and Gold Rock Road. And so we did talk about that mill when we were discussing grist mills here several months ago. But I didn't realize that this Mr. Weaver, who was the proprietor and owner of the Compass Creek grist mills back in 1951, apparently for a short period of time anyway, also operated the old Davenport Mill. And if you'll notice, it says Highway 95. That's obviously not Interstate 95. In 1951, there was no Interstate 95 anywhere near here. And if you also remember from previous shows, we've talked about some of the highway numbering changes that took place over the years. And interestingly enough, Highway 95 actually was a numerical designation for what is now Highway 43 and also Highway 97, interestingly enough. And I'm not sure how that came to be, but I saw a couple ads that referenced this part of the country and mentioned it being off Highway 95. So anyway, as I said, in 1951, the proprietors, the owners of Compass Creek Mill, also for a short while anyway, ran the Davenport Mill. They were probably, in fact, I've not been able to verify this, but they were probably the last people to operate the Davenport Mill, because in the 1960s, the mill was no longer operating as a grist mill. And so we'll get more of that in a minute. In fact, by 1964, the mill was no longer operating. And I apologize, these pictures are not great quality, but Lee, if you would put item number 2 up on the screen for our viewers to look at. And this is a picture that appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram in November of 1964. And I'll read the caption to you here. It says, "The old Davenport's Mill, located on Tar River near Rocky Mount, closed some time ago. However, for many years, it was a site of much activity, serving as a grist mill and sawmill for local farmers. Already deteriorated and weather beaten, it will soon be torn down to make way for progress, as this site will be used for Rocky Mount's water expansion program." So you see, in 1964, there was pretty heavy contention to utilize this site for the Rocky Mount Reservoir Dam site. And like I said, further scrutiny of the area made them decide this was not a good place to put it, and they changed their plans and moved it to where it is now. But in 1964, the building of the grist mill was actually still standing. As you see, it was pretty well deteriorated by this time, but it was still standing as recently as 1964. In 1964 also, interestingly enough, that picture there appeared in November. The very next month, December 1964, there was some torrential rains and torrential flooding around Rocky Mount. Item number 3, if you would, Lee. This picture was taken there at the Davenport Grist Mill in December of 1964, and the caption reads, Tar River rages. Tar River, which overflowed its banks here Monday, was settling down in the area today, leaving the memory of such scenes as the photo above taken at Davenport Mill in the Little Eastonburg area. So as you can see, the river is really high here. It was almost up to the base of the building. At this point, it's well outside its banks. And according to this caption, it was already on the way down by the time this picture was taken. But again, 1964, the Davenport Mill had ceased to operate and was no more. Item number 4, Lee, this was a neat article that appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram, and there's several pictures here, and again, I apologize. I tried to enhance them as best I could, but they're just not very good quality pictures from this time frame. But this article appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram, August of 1965. And you see the headline, Davenport Mill grinds no more, rust takes toll. The big stone grinds no more, rust have taken its toll among the gears and pulleys. The elements eat away at its superstructure, but Davenport Mill still stands. Spanning the Tar River near the tiny Nash County community of Eastonburg, the muddy waters of the Tar River are still contained by the mill dam. The big mill wheel has long since rotted. Silence assumes what was once a bustling center of activity. This is 1965, and this generation has no need for a water wheel and a corn grindstone. Only the continuous rhythm of the water breaks the silence. But they say a new dam may be built near here, for this generation does not need electricity. This generation does need electricity, and with the dam will come a reservoir, a new generation of fun seekers, and with it undoubtedly will go old Davenport Mill. So again, 1965 even, there were plans to erect the Rocky Mount Reservoir Dam at the location of the Davenport Grist Mill. There's no way of knowing what happened to everything that was there, the old antique gears and mechanisms that operated the grist mill, the huge grindstones that were used to grind the mill and so forth. It'd be interesting to know what happened to all that stuff, and they may be out there somewhere. I don't know. They may be covered up under a couple of feet of silt under the Tar River for all we know. But it's just interesting. These are 4 different pictures as you see here, and like I said, the quality is terrible. I apologize. But you can still make out on the bottom picture especially the shelter itself where the grinding was done, and then of course the dam with the raceways where the water flows through and so forth. August 1965. Okay, so I mentioned that there was great interest from an early point for Rocky Mount to have a reservoir. By 1964, we had certainly outgrown at that time, and I found it interesting that there were several references to the reservoir in Rocky Mount in the 1960s, and what they were referring to was the water tank by the old water plant over of Tar River there, the Tank Theater, what later became the Tank Theater. That water tank there was, by many people's reference anyway, what was considered to be the Rocky Mount Reservoir. Obviously, for a town that even in the 1960s with some 20, 30,000 people, that little bit of water in that tank there wouldn't last very long at all in the event of a severe drought. So there was much effort put into generating public interest and helping the public realize the need for a reservoir, and not only a reservoir, but a new water treatment plant. And so the plan was kind of put forth to build a reservoir and at the same time build a wastewater treatment plant. Oh, we got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller. You're on the air.
All right. We was talking about that water tank down there on the Tar River there, where
the Tank Theater was.
The Tank Theater was. That situation right there was something that the Atlantic Coastline Railroad many years ago put there to take water from the Tar River and pump it up Nashville Road to the Emerson shops by way of steam pumps.
That's exactly right. I saw several articles referencing the Atlantic Coastline Railroad's participation in that. You're exactly right.
All right.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Yeah, you know, it's interesting how much influence the Atlantic Coastline Railroad had on the development of Rocky Mount over the years. They were certainly a major player because of their needs, their needs for power and water and electricity and so forth. Were big drivers in helping the city of Rocky Mount push forward these grand plans to enlarge and expand and create these new capabilities and infrastructure for utilities and so forth. Before we go to our first break, I want to just put up item number 5 if you would. We're going to back up just a little bit because in 1964, May of 64, there was a mayoral race in Rocky Mount, as well as they were electing city aldermen too. And of course, the two candidates for mayor at that time were John Menges and Billy Harrison. And so anyway, there was obviously a lot of talk going around about the proposed dam and new water treatment plant and so forth. And so the candidates actually utilized that topic when they were trying to, garner votes and so forth, talking to people. And I just read a little quick quote here. This is from Billy Harrison. So the complete water survey was made in 1954 and brought up to date twice. It was reported to the city council just after the first of the year that a new dam, reservoir, and plant should be built on the Tar River by 1970. This need was anticipated. So by 1954, there was already a understanding that Rocky Mount was going to need a better water supply, a better water treatment system. And so there was a lot of interest in this thing, and more so being generated. Lee, bring it back to me. It's time for our first commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the efforts that went into generating not only public interest, but public support for this new reservoir and water treatment plant. So don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service, we offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family, and we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
We're in our 18th year of practice at the Hammer Chiropractic Center, and we've seen over 15,000 different people in the Rocky Mount area. 40% of headaches actually come from a neck problem. Many patients come in taking multiple aspirin, over-the-counter medications and such a day, and we can get you to stop doing that and actually fix the problem so the headaches don't rise anymore. A lot of people think chiropractic hurts. It does not. Most of the people come in and they feel great when they leave.
What is the Davis Furniture difference? The difference is we buy with you in mind. For generations, we have listened to our customers. We can help you find the look you want for every room in your house. Quality, style, color, and of course, service. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Davis Furniture, the family business where we treat you like family. Let us help you make your house a home. Davis Furniture, historical downtown Rocky Mount, on the corner of Hill and Main.
And we're back. Folks, if you're just tuning in, you're watching Wayback Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcox. We're talking tonight about the old Davenport grist mill just upstream from Layman's Ferry Bridge on Halifax Road here in Rocky Mount. And the fact that very early in the planning stages for the Rocky Mount Reservoir Dam, that site there at the mill, where the mill used to be, I should say, was seriously considered as a location for the dam. And during the vetting process and the surveying, and by the way, you know, people never think about what all goes into selecting a location and then preparation of that location for something as massive as a dam to be built. And it literally was a massive undertaking. A lot of engineering went into that. A lot of very smart people with some very capable minds went into getting everything in order so that that reservoir dam could be built where it was eventually built. But when I realized that the old Davenport grist mill location was, at least in the early stages of consideration, a favored spot, it got me interested in how that area came to be and how the grist mill was there, and then later on how the Rocky Mount Reservoir and dam and water plant all came to be too. So that's kind of the focus of tonight's show. And I mentioned before the break that in early 1964, there was a lot of effort by a lot of different people, certainly the Rocky Mount City alderman at that time, just before the city council became the council, was alderman then. But there was effort to generate public interest and indeed public support for this massive undertaking, considering the fact that the Rocky Mount Reservoir covers hundreds of acres. I'm not even going to cast a number out. There's probably thousands actually. But that's a huge amount of water that's going to literally cover and forever. Oh, we got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller. You on the air?
Hello.
Hello. Turn your TV down. Turn your TV down.
Hello.
I'm here. Turn your TV down. TV down. Okay, you got it. Yes, sir.
Okay, you got it. Yes, sir. Okay, you got it.
Okay, you there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
Hold on just a second. Yeah, I'm still here. Okay, I turned the TV down.
There you go. Okay, what's on your mind tonight?
Okay, let me talk to you about that grist mill. I live right in front of it. I had a chance to buy that place one time, and I ought to be kicked in the rear end for not buying it. But I found out it would cost me up in close to $1 billion to fix it the way I wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you got to go through the Corps of Army engineers and, you know, a whole lot of red tape when you start messing with that river.
Yes, sir. You're exactly right.
But anyway, another man bought it not long ago.
Yeah, Steve Looper bought
He's
it.
in the landscaping business.
That's Steve Looper. Yes,
But
sir.
he bought it. How I found out about it, somebody was running for election and all that stuff and had signs outside the road. That's what I thought they were. I didn't know it was a real estate sign.
Right.
I would have bought it.
Yeah, you missed out. Oh, Steve Looper's got it now.
Yeah. Anyway, he bought it. I don't know what he's going to do with it, but he don't know the environmental people. If he does something wrong down there, they'll burn him up.
Yeah, I've seen some pictures of
But
what he's
anyway,
done. It's looking nice down
I
there.
remember when that mill was in operation. See, I'm 80 years old.
Okay.
And I went in it when it was in operation. Me and my daddy went in it. And
Okay.
also my sister's, my oldest sister, her husband, daddy used to operate that mill. He was a smith. He ground corn in the sawmill there. He cut logs. I remember riding, we farm our mules over on Old Mill Road.
Yes, sir.
And I rode on one of the logs, riding down there. You go down way down the hill now to the dam.
Right.
But where you grind the corn at, and that stuck up probably about Rose Highway level out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, keep water from getting in there where you grind that.
Yes, sir.
When the river come up.
Right.
But anyway, me and I own a place down outside the river where they put the new bridge at.
Yes, sir.
There on the right there. But anyway, I used to live down there. I got flooded out in 99. Then I built this house up here in front of the old mill.
Okay. I know what you're talking about. Yes, sir. I sure do.
But anyway, I used to put my canoe in and my German Shepherd get in there with me and we'd paddle up to that mill where the dam is.
Yes, sir. Where are
And
the
there's some
old...
good fishing up there around that dam.
I'm sure. Look, whatever happened to the old stones, the grindstones? You have any idea?
Miss Daughtry's, back when I was going to buy it, I should have bought it. Miss Daughtry's, they used to own that family did.
Right.
And anyway, she was looking after it and everything. And I was talking to her. And she told me somebody stole them grinding stones.
Oh, really?
She said she
Wow.
went down there one day and they were gone.
Wow.
She said that made her so mad she wanted them grinding stones.
I'm sure. Well, that's a shame. I'm sorry to hear that.
But Miss Daughtry's daughter's still living. She fills out income taxes and stuff like that now, I think.
Okay.
But anyway,
Well, thank you so much for calling in and sharing your memories. I appreciate that.
but my granddaddy, when he come out of the Civil War, he used to own up there where the TV station place is on Westmount Drive.
You mean the...
Lost that. And what money he did get out of it, he went over on Bend River Road and bought a lot of land from the Bullets.
Okay.
I know you talked about Z.B. Bullets and all
Yes, sir.
on your program. Well, I listened to your program.
Yes, sir.
And Z.B. Bullets had a line.
He sure
There's a
did.
bank in front of his house now.
That's right.
Anyway, he had a line. He owned a meat company. He fed that line, but he roared so much so often, the neighbors didn't like it. So he had to get rid of the line. I don't know what happened to him. I lost track of all that.
Yes, sir.
But anyway, I remember all of that. But my granddaddy went to Bell River and bought a tract of land. It went from where the reservoir is, he owned all the way to the river.
Mm-hmm.
And it went through this farm over there and crossed 97, home dad over there. And Dave Batts, I don't know if you remember him or not, he was a big farmer. He wound up with all of it. And now that whole farm is growed up in houses.
Mm-hmm.
I thought to myself, Dave Batts will come out of his grave to see what happened to that place. But how he got that land, though, my daddy was kin to his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And my daddy used to make moonshine, and Dave Batts didn't like that. So he moved down there closer to the river on the opposite side of the road. And I used to have him make moonshine. A lot of good at it, too. And he got caught, I think, 3 times making it.
Oh, gracious.
But now I'm saying you can make all you want as long as you don't sell it.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
Because all they want, the government, the state and the government and the county and all wants taxes out of it,
Yes, sir. Well, look, I hate to cut you short. I've got some other folks trying to call in, so let me jump off here, get some other calls. But thanks so much for your information, and thanks for watching the show. We really appreciate it.
Let me ask you one more question.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The Nash County and Ashcombe County used to be all one county.
Yes, sir.
Huh?
They did, yes, sir.
See, it is.
It used to be. Yeah, Nash County was cut out of Edgecombe County.
Is that what it was?
Yes, sir.
But anyway, I heard something about that. What year was it cut out?
Oh, boy, that goes way back to the 1700s. I don't know the exact date. And they've moved the county line, too. The county line between Nash and Edgecombe County used to be there at Tar River at the Rocky Mount Mills. And sometime in the 1800s, they moved the county line to the railroad tracks going through the center of Rocky Mount. But
my ancestors come over here in 1703.
Well, they would probably know about it.
Yeah, but they can't talk. They can't tell me about it.
They can't tell you nothing, can they? All right. So, well, look, thanks again for calling in. I really appreciate you watching the show and your viewership. And you have yourself a good evening, okay?
Okay, you too.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. Okay, so we were talking about the interest, we're trying to generate interest in the reservoir and the water treatment plant and so forth. And so there were several groups that launched a fairly significant campaign to generate this interest and support for it. Item number 6, Lee, if you would, the Breakfast Optimist Club was just one of many local groups in Rocky Mount. And this is just an article. I'm not going to try to read the whole thing. It's kind of long. I'm just going to read the first little part of it here. This appeared in Telegram in August of 1964. It says, the Breakfast Optimist Club this morning joined other community civic clubs in endorsing the $6 million water and sewer bond issue, which the city's citizens are asked to support on August 18th. After the short business session at which the club voted unanimous support, President M.H. Thompson said, the club feels that passage of the bond issue is vital to the continued growth and well-being of Rocky Mount, and that recreational uses of the proposed water reservoir will add greatly to the city's recreation program. So in addition to, generating support for the fact that Rocky Mount needed a reservoir of water to support the growing population, and we need a bigger and more efficient water treatment plant to support the same growing population, there was also the aspect of recreation, fishing, boating, swimming, and so forth. And so that Breakfast Optimist Club was just one of many groups. Item number 7, if you would, Lee, the JCs got involved in this too, of course. Rocky Mount Junior Chamber of Commerce approved the city's proposed $6 billion bond Wednesday night at their meeting. The JCs unanimously adopted a resolution favoring the bond issue for water and sewer system improvements. So, you mentioned a while ago, I mentioned the $6 million number. That number was what they had, after years of research and years of looking into this and trying to get a financial estimate of what it would cost to do what they needed to do. The $6 million number seemed to be enough to cover it all. And in a few minutes we'll show you how far short that number turned out to be. Item number 8, Lee, this was September 1964. The Rocky Mount water mains and so forth were in dire straits by this time. Some of them had been in existence for almost 100 years. And so the city of Rocky Mount contracted with the company to literally reline the inner linings of the water mains. And this was the first part of this $6 million water and sewer improvement program. And so, the city knew that if they got this new water plant and new reservoir constructed and built, pumping that water from way out there at the reservoir where it is today all the way into the city of Rocky Mount would require some pretty updated water mains and meters and equipment and so forth. And so this was really the first stage of getting all this done, was to get these water mains relined. Item number 9, Lee, this was October of 1964. The Ruritan Club jumped in on it. Russell Buxton, Director of Planning for the City of Rocky Mount, talked about the city's planned Tar River Reservoir at the Cooper's Ruritan Club meeting last week in the school cafeteria. After giving statistics of Rocky Mount's future water supply needs and after reviewing plans for the new dam and reservoir, Buxton opened the floor for questions. Obviously, this Cooper's community was in very close proximity to the proposed location for the dam and so forth. And so these various civic groups were going out and reaching out to these communities that were in that area and trying to sell them on the idea that, yes, we're going to probably take part of your land, you'll be compensated for it, but it's really important that you go along with this program. Item number 10, Lee, if you would, January 1965, the mayor got in on this. Mayor John Menges explains the city's plans for a new water reservoir to 2 Nash County farmers who own land which will be covered by the lake. City Manager W.H. Batcher looks on as the mayor talks to L.C. Eason and Marvin Joyner, both of Route 1 Rocky Mount. So the civic groups, these clubs, the Rocky Mount City Alderman, the mayor, all of them were out here in force trying to drum up support for this new $6 million project that everyone, for the most part, particularly within the city governmental hierarchy anyway, was in agreement that this was something the city needed to do. It wasn't a pie-in-the-sky dream of somebody's pet project. This was something the city, if you remember from previous shows, the 1960s, in fact, it started in the 1950s, after World War II, and in the early 1950s on through the 1960s. Rocky Mount experienced a really significant boom. Population grew, there were new businesses coming to town, new things opening up, and the writing was on the wall. Rocky Mount's aging infrastructure, particularly water and sewer and so forth, needed to be upgraded if Rocky Mount was to sustain this growth that it was seeing. All right, one more, Lee. Item number 11, July 1965. The surveying took place, was ongoing for several months, a year in fact. But they went out and did surveys on literally everything out there in that area that was going to be underwater. And, they wanted to know exactly how, and I just see there, this article, 2,400 acres of water. I mentioned earlier thousands of acres. It turns out it was 2,400 acres that was proposed to be underwater once the reservoir was full after the dam was built and water backed up into the reservoir behind the dam. So they literally had to go out and make sure that they knew with a fairly good idea about where the water was going to go, how far it was going to extend outward from the main channel of the river, and how much land was going to need to be cleared for this water to be accessible for boaters and fishermen and so forth. Okay, I see it's time for our next commercial break. Lee, bring it back to me. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the preparation that took place for this dam and this water treatment plant. It was literally an engineering marvel. There's a lot that took place during the 2, 3, 4 years after construction started. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service, we offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family, and we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
We're in our 18th year of practice at the Hammer Chiropractic Center, and we've seen over 15,000 different people in the Rocky Mount area. 40% of headaches actually come from a neck problem. Many patients come in taking multiple aspirin, over-the-counter medications and such a day, and we can get you to stop doing that and actually fix the problem so the headaches don't rise anymore. A lot of people think chiropractic hurts. It does not. Most of the people come in and they feel great when they leave.
What is the Davis Furniture difference? The difference is we buy with you in mind. For generations, we have listened to our customers. We can help you find the look you want for every room in your house. Quality, style, color, and of course, service. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Davis Furniture, the family business where we treat you like family. Let us help you make your house a home. Davis Furniture, historical downtown Rocky Mount, on the corner of Hill and Main.
We're talking about the Rocky Mount Reservoir and Dam and water treatment plant and so forth. As I said earlier, it was a tremendous amount of work that had to go into planning and preparation before the first shovel of dirt was ever turned over out there. Item number 12, let's jump right back into this, Lee. Item number 12, this picture appeared in July 1965 in a telegram, and it's just a quick snapshot of some of the survey crews that were out. As I said, and I'll read this real quickly. It says, line them up, surveying crews at the firm of Hudley and Gay have passed a halfway point on surveying work for Rocky Mount's new water reservoir in Nash County. Bush axes, whack, and instrument men sight along the poles in hot fields and muggy woods. In the close-up, Fred Farrell works in the field. In the photo on the right, he prepares to set up his instruments. And so these people are out here, and you see it's pretty thick there. This was in July. You can imagine what kind of temperature. It was hot, muggy, sticky, probably mosquitoes, everything else. Ticks, flies, mosquitoes, you name it. But these guys were out here surveying this land. Item number 13, Lee, is just another picture. And you know, by today's standards, this is pretty antiquated surveying equipment. Obviously, today they would use much newer, much more sophisticated equipment to do surveying. But in 1965, this is what they had. And so it was, you know, dirty, grueling, back-breaking work, I'm sure, tromping through the woods and through swamps and everywhere else. But it had to be done. Item number 14, Lee, if you would. This was a full-page article that appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram, and I just did a screenshot of the entire page. But this is a map showing the really dark black area there is showing the proposed outline. This is November 1966, by the way. There was still no dam built, still nothing done that's going to back up any water. But all the surveying they had done and all the research and evaluation of the land and the area out there, looking at topographical maps and really getting a good feel for the lay of the land, if you will, this is what they come up with. And if you look at a present day map of the Rocky Mount Reservoir, it looks almost identical to this. They were really that good, that precise in their measurements. They had a really good idea about what was going to happen when they dammed the Tar River at the location where the dam was eventually put, and they were pretty much spot on. Not too many surprises with what happened with water as the dam backed the water up behind it. Item number 15, Lee, this was just a short article appeared. I accidentally cut off the headline. I apologize. I'm going to read this real quickly. It says, the realization the Rocky Mount Reservoir took another forward step last night when the city councilman unanimously passed a resolution requesting the State Stream Sanitation Committee to classify streams affecting the proposed Tar River Reservoir. If the state committee takes the requested action, Saponi Creek and its tributaries from North Carolina 58 to Tar River, the reservoir itself, and all other tributaries of the river from the dam west of Whitley's Mill to State Road 1001 would be classified A-2, which would prohibit certain uses of the bodies of water. Under A-2, dumping of raw sewage and industrial waste would be prohibited, as would swimming in certain areas. City Manager Bill Baxter pointed out, however, that boating and swimming would be allowed in many areas of the reservoir. So the big point here is, since this was going to be Rocky Mount's source of drinking water, they wanted to make sure that there was nobody dumping any kind of hazardous chemicals or waste or anything else in any of the streams or tributaries or swamps that may eventually find its way into the Tar River and, of course, then into the Rocky Mount Reservoir. So that took place in October 1966. May of 1968, Lee, item number 16, if you would. Rocky Mount experienced one of the worst droughts in the history of this city. It was horrible. The Tar River literally dried up in certain parts of the city. It was so bad, in fact, that they were pulling water from the reservoir, not reservoir, but the rock quarries around town, pumping water from the rock quarries into the streams and that would flow into the Tar River, trying to keep some water coming into the Rocky Mount area. This article appeared, and it was just very timely. You see the headline there, proposed water reservoir project runs into early planning problems. Sadly, right in the middle of this major drought where things were drying up and there was an absolute need, by this point everyone agreed we need a reservoir, they found out that their budget had been literally shot to heck, to use an old saying, and there was several reasons for that. Number one, it had taken several years to get to the point where they could start doing construction. Number two, they realized that their initial estimates were really didn't cover enough. In other words, the wastewater treatment plant, not wastewater, but the water treatment plant, just one example, was initially designed to provide 12 million gallons of water a day. They quickly realized that was not going to be enough, and so they doubled that capacity to 24 million gallons of water a day. And so that was just one aspect that blew the budget right there. The cost, construction costs had increased dramatically from the early estimates in the early 1960s, 62, 63, 64, and so forth. So by 1968, things had almost come to a standstill. They had started working on the water treatment plant, but the water treatment plant could not operate without a reservoir to pull water from. So it was almost an emergency, if you will. I mentioned the drought. The drought was so bad that several plants around Rocky Mount went into a shutdown mode. Item number 17, Lee. This was October 1968. Well, let's get this caller right quick. Hello, caller, you on the air?
All right, and that event you're talking about right now in 1968 was also tied in a knot a little bit. The way I remember it being in the news, that they kept putting it up as a bond referendum ballot, and it kept getting voted down. And when that bad drought came in 1968 and people realized that they might not have enough water to flush a pea pot, that changed their mind.
Yeah, it sure did.
About wanting to get that done, and that changed the direction very quickly when it became voted on by people as the result of a bond referendum.
Exactly right. And
Right.
it made a difference. Okay, buddy, thank you. Okay, Lee, item number 17, if you would. Burlington Mills literally shuttled about half of their plant at one point because the mills in Rocky Mount, Burlington Mills, Sheffield Mills, Shotland Mills, Rocky Mount Mills, they all use a tremendous amount of water in their operation. And it says Burlington Industries has cut its water usage greatly during the current water shortage. Here, drying vats at the men's division, finishing and dyeing plant are either idle or operating at speeds which reduce the amount of water required. So these major plants that would ordinarily be running 2 and sometimes 3 shifts were literally shuttered in some cases and scaled way back in others. Item number 18, Lee. This was Phillips Fibers, and the same thing. They idled several pieces of equipment, several machines in their plant over on Atlantic Avenue because there simply was not enough water to keep things going. Interestingly enough, Phillips Fibers actually had a small reservoir. Many of you may remember this. They had a small reservoir outside the plant. Item number 19, Lee. This picture was also taken in October 1968. And Phillips Fibers was actually, in an effort to reuse water, so to keep from using so much of the city water, they dug a little small reservoir out beside the plant. And you see this gentleman here is firing up a pump, and it says, hard hit by the local water shortage, Phillips Fibers built a dam to form a reservoir of used water that the plant usually dumps back into Tar River. This recirculation system allows the plant to reuse water and cut its water consumption. So there were some drastic measures that were required because of this drastic drought that was hitting this entire part of the state. Item number 20, Lee, October 1968. As Eric just said there, people finally realized we've got to do something. The Tar River had literally dried up in some places. This article appeared October 1968, and you see the bottom picture there are people standing. That is literally right there. Bridge in the background is the bridge over Sunset Avenue Bridge over the Tar River there by Chico's, and they're standing out there in the river. And there's just a barely little stream of water flowing there, but it was urgent, and something had to be done. And it was a pretty much universal consensus that we needed to move forward on this. Okay, December 1968. I mentioned earlier that the mayor got involved in trying to drum up support, and in December '68, the mayor went out and literally talked to people on the street, answered questions, anything that might be questioned by anyone. The mayor was there to answer questions. Let's get this call. Hello, caller, you on the air?
All right, at that time it got so dire that the city of Rocky Mount put a large diesel pump downstream in the Tar River down there near Rocky Mount Mills to pump what little bit of water was there back up to the water plant across Sunset Avenue from where Chico's restaurant is now.
Right. Yeah, because they couldn't get water from the river there to go into the water plant. That's exactly right.
And they had water down there near the Rocky Mountain Mills, and they had to pump it back up there to the water plant.
That's right. That's exactly right. It was a rough time. It was a dire emergency, no doubt.
Goodbye.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Okay, Lee. Item number 21. We can go on by that, and let's just go straight to item number 22, if you would. And there was a vote. Eric just mentioned the bond vote that took place January 1969. The city of Rocky Mount had this vote, and it passed. I forgot the exact numbers, but it was overwhelming support. There was a few folks opposed to it, but the vast majority of those that voted in favor of the bond issue to borrow the $6 million to build the dam. And as I said earlier, they ended up having to get some more money later on because that was not enough, as it turns out. Item number 23, Lee, March of 1970. This picture shows the water treatment plant under construction. As I said, the plan was to build the water treatment plant and build the reservoir dam so that by the time the dam was built and the water was backed up behind the dam, they could immediately be pulling water from the reservoir into the water treatment plant and then treating that water and then pumping it through the mains back to the city of Rocky Mount to be used. So as you see, those in the bottom right hand corner, those huge water mains there that would carry the water from the treatment plant back into Rocky Mount after it was pulled from the reservoir and then treated at the water treatment plant there. June of 1970, Lee, item number 24. We're about to run out of time. May not get to all these tonight, folks. If we don't, we'll carry up next week. This is a picture atop the dam. In June of 1970, construction was still ongoing. And as you see, the main structure of the dam was pretty much complete, but there was still a lot of construction going on. You see the drag line and so forth down at the bottom down there. It was still working in the riverbed. There was a lot of last minute details had to be taken care of. Item number 25, Lee, June of 1970. The dam itself by now is built. They were still working on it, oddly enough, but it was actually beginning to hold water and back up water. So the picture to the left shows the Tar River, the channel itself, and you can see where they've cleared the land on either side of the river channel there. And that was necessary throughout pretty much the entire area where they were believed that the water was going to eventually spread into as it came outside of the banks, outside of the channel, and began to fill in the rest of the reservoir. Okay, Lee, item number 26, this is September 1970, and again you can see now the top picture, you can see a little bit more width of the channel of the river as it's beginning to spread out and fill the reservoir. The bottom picture is actually showing the left-hand side is the side of the dam where the water is being backed up. The right-hand side of this picture is barely cut off there, but that would be the other side. And there's something like a 35-foot difference between the water level when the reservoir is full and the river bed at the base of the dam below. So 35 feet wall of water is there. November of 1970, Lee, item number 27. As you can see here now, the water is actually coming over the dam. You still see there's a drag line, a crane down in the bottom of the riverbed, so they're still working on this whole area down there. But the reservoir itself is being filled as all this work is still going on. Item number 28, Lee, February 1971. A lot of folks didn't realize this, but as the reservoir began to fill up, there were some roads that had a bridge over the river, and those bridges were so low that they were going to be underwater. And one in particular was the bridge on not Seven Bridges Road, at the Bend of the River Road. That bridge had to be rebuilt, and this is what this picture is showing here. There on the left and on the right, it's showing the construction of the new bridge that had to be put in place there on Bend of the River Road, because the original bridge there, had they not torn it down and replaced it, would have been underwater. And item number 29, Lee, is a better picture of that. This was taken in June in 1971, and you can see there now the construction of that. And by the way, the caption, I won't read the whole thing, but the caption says that the majority of the land you see here all around this bridge is now underwater, outside the road bed itself. But yeah, as you see the river channel there, but as the reservoir continued to fill with water, all that land on both sides you see there is now underwater. Item number 30, Lee, real quick, we're out of time, but this is just something a lot of folks never envisioned. August 1971, there was a major fish kill in the reservoir, and they finally deemed it was caused by there was so much vegetation that they did not clear. They didn't realize that they had left so much vegetation in some of the areas, and as the vegetation became covered with water, it of course died, it began to rot, and the decomposition process utilized and used a lot of oxygen, and it literally caused the oxygen level in the reservoir to drop so low that there were thousands of pounds of fish that died. Stories said there was some trophy fish that were just floating all across the water out there. And it took a few years for this to be overcome. So, Lee, the last picture is just a picture of the reservoir as it is today, and we'll put that up as we go away for the night. Folks, that's going to do it for us. We've run slam out of time. I want to thank the callers that called in for sharing your memories with us tonight. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate each and every one of you. Have a great week. Take care of yourselves, folks, and be kind to one another. We'll see you next week with more Wayback Wednesday. Good night.